Okay. Yeah. Okay, now I think we're live, Kristen. See the
Okay.
Christmas tree behind you.
Yep.
Now, I look so funny because we're going to x-ray a situation here. And let me see if we're really live. Um, yep, we are. Now, I look so funny because we're going to X. Okay, I'm going to X out. I just looked at my iPad. Okay, so we're live. We see your Christmas tree. Now, we had a conversation that we want to discuss, and we're just going to pop that on the screen here. We talked to a plastic surgeon. Actually, I posed as a patient just to see how
Sir.
they would react to a question. And this was a communication via Facebook Messenger. So I asked them, can I book an appointment via Facebook Messenger? I got back, of course, ask, when do you want to come in? And I'm like, well, is Facebook Messenger HIPAA compliant or is my personal privacy secured? And then I get an answer, I don't participate in Medicare. I don't have to be compliant, so have a nice day. So that was the entirety of the conversation that actually people can see that. I have a screenshot. This is mimicked here. We don't want to disclose the doctor because that would be unfair. But the discussion
Yeah,
here really is,
we do care about privacy.
yeah, well, okay, let me just switch myself to normal so I don't, that's, okay. So
Oh.
the question is now, after we had this conversation last week, you asked your lawyer. What does your lawyer say about this?
So, I mean, without talking with the doctor, I can't say for sure whether he truly does not fall under HIPAA because just not billing Medicare is not actually the criteria, all inclusive. But let's just pretend that he doesn't fall under HIPAA and doesn't meet any of that criteria, so he's good to go. And that's true. I mean, that there are ways to not fall under HIPAA. There's a lot of stuff that you have to not do. You can't hire anybody else to do those things for you, or it does count, and you'd be under HIPAA. And some docs don't understand that, which makes sense because HIPAA is not exactly written in plain English and
Yeah.
made easy for people. But I think that killed me the most when I saw that response was that you were a prospective patient when you were messaging him. And he had I'm trying to word
Well,
this
you can
nicely.
say audacity. You already said that in a comment below this here,
Oh,
so
something else, but yes, like he
don't be
had the
nice. Just be straight.
right to actually the audacity to say to you, the prospective patient, that he didn't have to worry about HIPAA. All you were asking was basically if Messenger was compliant. And I mean, as a patient, you have every right to be concerned about how you're communicating, and you might have wanted to make a decision to switch to a different communication method had you been a real patient and found out that Facebook Messenger might not be the best way to do that. So I mean, I think it's a fair question, but his response back to you, the prospective patient, was, "I don't have to be HIPAA compliant." I mean, what in the stink
Well,
is
there
this
is
guy?
there's like 99.9% of all doctors have to be HIPAA compliant, right? Is that true or not?
Well, I don't know the percentage, but I mean, what
Well,
kills me is the guy.
HIPAA is privacy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's protected health information. So it's privacy as it relates to, I mean, consumer privacy in general is a much bigger deal, right? There's like a whole bunch of stuff around consumer privacy, and there's more than one entity that's in on that, game. HIPAA just drops that down to a niche of, health information. And so that's what we're talking about. But the guy had the gall to tell you that he just didn't care about your privacy. Essentially, that's what he's saying is, I don't have to worry about it. But he doesn't apparently care what you think about it
Yeah.
as a prospective patient. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm still kind of reeling from that because that's a doctor that I would not want to see. In fact, I would go out of my way to make sure that nobody that I knew or cared about would go to him for any services because he clearly doesn't have your best interests at heart. What kind of a
Well,
physician is?
he probably thinks HIPAA is a pain in the butt, which it is,
Hey,
right?
it is. I'm sorry. I'm not a fan of government regulations. I didn't actually choose to teach this crap, okay? It chose me. But the point is, if somebody is that blatantly going to say to you that he doesn't have to worry about your privacy.
Now, I can tell you from a marketing perspective, that's why I wrote in the headline below this video, don't have to be HIPAA compliant equals fail, because from a marketing perspective, if that would come out in the market that he gave that response to me, he could just pack up his services.
He could have said, I don't know if Messenger is compliant. Do you have another preferred method of communication that we can switch to? I'd love to work with you to schedule an appointment if that's something he could have said so many other things that are more sort of patient friendly and go along with, basically who he's supposed to be to you in the role that he is as a doctor. I'm still shocked.
Well, from a marketing perspective, if you think about all the things that you could do with that statement, if I would have been, let's say I did this for one of his competitors. One thing that I do in marketing regularly is I go out and I research the market. And part of the research of the market is that I basically shop the competition. And let's say I was working for one of his competitors and I got a screenshot of that.
Yeah.
Just imagine what happens now. I can go to all his Facebook reviews and just comment on them with my screenshot. He would turn his reviews off. He would have to ban me off his Facebook page. And this is just, and I have experienced this with my clients, that if a patient is not happy, and they're doing this, I can show you reviews on Google of patients that have gone out of their way to make sure that everybody knows that this doctor is a problem. And so
Right.
From a marketing perspective, an answer like that is ridiculous.
Yeah. Even if it's true. And it may very well be true that he doesn't need to be HIPAA compliant. I'm cool with that, but you don't say that to a prospective patient. That's just not even ethical.
Yeah.
And by the way, he's so to the point on the HIPAA thing, but hello, there's state laws. There's other consumer privacy acts and other entities out there that are probably in many cases more restrictive than HIPAA.
Well, we have another comment below this. Jay Lopez commented on this, and she says when she hears marketers say this, they laugh, or she laughs. Jay is a nurse, and in some respect, she's right. You're a nurse too, right? But in some respects, she's right? The doctors, the staff at a hospital, in a small practice, for them, it's a nuisance to have to follow some law that seems arbitrary in restricting what they can and can't do.
I can elaborate on that, okay? Because I've spent the last 12 years as a consultant working with multiple healthcare organizations, which I'm not going to name. I think any name inserted in there would be the same experience. But basically, I help them move their electronic medical record to a certain software application. And so wherever they're documenting things, they have to move all of it. And in that process, I find myself in situations routinely where I'm coaching executive leadership of the hospital or the healthcare organization as a whole on compliance, like opportunities for improvement, right? Because it's not just HIPAA. There's federal regulations on top of federal regulations, and then you add in that the state laws, and you add in that, their own policies that they may or may not be in compliance with. And when you work with organizations at that level, it shines a white hot light on what's not quite right. And as a consultant, one of my jobs is to help them get things back in check, right? So I'm used to these conversations, and oh my goodness, I'm the last person that's going to tell you that we all love regulations. Regulations are like the bane of our existence, but it's just a necessary evil. Like, we have to comply with all of that stuff, or there's a whole lot of crap that can come down on us if we don't. So it is what it is, and I'm not portraying HIPAA as this wonderful thing. I didn't want to deal with it at all when I went into marketing. I did my best to try and stay the heck away from it. Look how that worked out for me. So I get it. That makes sense to me.
Now, I just popped a comment from Kimberly Shutters here on the screen. She says, healthcare providers need to wise up about HIPAA. I paid cash for an extremely huge dental procedure before I did. I made sure they were following HIPAA. Now, Kimberly is in HIPAA compliance as well, but
Yeah.
is it true that patients don't really know what type of rights they have?
Patients don't. They're worried about their privacy, as we can see by all kinds of stuff that happens in the media and Facebook, that whole Cambridge Analytica scandal. I mean, that was just a prime example. And I don't know if you realize this, but is it Google right now? I think yesterday they were testifying in Washington over something related to privacy and security of people's information. So, I mean, it's all over the place. People are concerned about their own personal privacy and protection of their personal information, right? But most patients have never heard of HIPAA. They might have, they see paperwork that has the acronym on it and they know that it's something to do with privacy. They're only concerned when they feel violated or potentially violated, or they're concerned that their privacy is going to be violated in some way. And then all of a sudden they actually do care and they are paying attention. And that's where the complaints come from. That's where bad things happen. And sometimes they didn't even do anything wrong, but the patient themselves feels their perspective is that they might or have been violated. And so it can stir some crap up even if you didn't do anything wrong.
Now, there was something that I said, to see if I can add myself. Yeah, see, I got myself in the broadcast now. I said, if a single doctor in the market picks up what marketers are talking about, though, it will change the entire market in that specialty. That's one thing why we are in this, right? We want to give the people that are good with this a competitive advantage, right?
And that's docs and marketers alike.
Yeah, and that's, I remember when I first talked to you, I was like, I tried to hide that I've tried to be HIPAA compliant because I was like, okay, I'm trying to be, and with my clients, I always was the guy who was out there. Whenever we shared PHI, I was like, but what about HIPAA? And I knew I couldn't be I'm originally German, so I knew I couldn't be this 100%. And if a German can't be 100%, then forget about it. And then you and I started talking, and I'm like, no, I'm going to use this as a competitive advantage. That's one thing that marketers and covered entities need to understand. Even though it may not be that this is, all about fines or all about corrective action plans or all about PHI, but if there's one doctor in the market, that one doctor may actually win the game because of it.
Right. And let me tell you why. And I'm going to get a little psychobabble on you here for just a second. At the core of every human being, what we all want is to feel that we matter and that someone is there for us. And if you line up 10 docs and only one of them gives a rip about your privacy and makes an effort to make sure that that that's one of the things on the top of their priority list, who are you going to go see? Really? I mean, all things equal, other than that, like they have to be a good doctor and stuff. But if you think about that, and it's the same way with the marketer. If the marketer is talking with the prospective client and there's 10 marketers all trying to get the same dentist or the same plastic surgeon as a client, and that doctor sees that the marketer actually is going to provide a higher level of service to them by being HIPAA compliant. I mean, think about that for a second. I now feel, as the provider, I feel like I matter. You're not just out there to make money. You're not just out there to bring me new leads, doing what everybody else does, right? You actually care about protecting my assets.
Yeah.
And that means a lot. Even if you don't think it's important, it means a lot to somebody, even if they don't think HIPAA is important, even if they don't know HIPAA even plays a role in lead generation. Think about the impact that just you caring enough about it to talk with them about it can actually have. And we've seen this happen. I mean, I have stories of people who've, kind of switched gears and started incorporating HIPAA into their businesses and their campaigns and their, when they're out prospecting and stuff. And they'll tell me.
Now, hold on. I'm going to stop you again. I have Paulson on the screen. And
really?
Paulson, our super dental marketer here, makes fun of my heat sensor. Paulson, I also have an X-ray sensor.
I've known you for a now,
You
Joe. I have to.
want to see that? This is X-ray. We're X-raying the situation. I have a heat sensor, and of course, I have also something that's called plug head, but I'm not going to turn that on.
Okay, we'll save that for another day. Oh my gosh. Joe always keeps me laughing. Not at first, though. I mean, you were talking about when we first met and what you thought about this whole Hipaa thing. You were like, a lot of people talk about how you need to have a daily workout. You need to exercise every day because it's healthy and improved as a healthy lifestyle, right? You were my workout, Joe. Okay, the very first time that we talked, you were like the guy that was so negative. I'm just being honest. Like, you were so negative and you were so adverse to everything that I was standing for. And I mean, I think our first call was like 2.5 hours of you telling me all the reasons why this wasn't important, this could never work, and blah 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 blah.
Well,
And
I talked about your business, right? And in my heart, I'm a business growth expert. That's what I do. I take my doctors, I look at their business, Paulson says something about x-rays again. I x-ray their business and I try to grow their business. I'm not just the lead generation expert. I look at business. And so when you came to me and said, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to teach these marketers how to do it, I'm like, they don't give it. Well,
you contacted you scheduled a 30-minute strategy call with me that turned into 2.5 hours of me listening to you tell me all the reasons why my whole thing wasn't going to work. Yeah. And I just told my husband, I'm like, this guy is going to be my daily workout. I'm going to get my exercise in. If there was ever anybody who could test my content, this guy is it, because he's going to come up with every freaking objection and misconception and false belief, and I'm not even going to have to work hard to pull it out of him. He's just going to hand it to me on a silver platter. So thank you, Joe.
Yeah, well, I'm still not sure, this reaction that we get. We're not sitting here and not doing anything. We're talking to marketers because we want marketers to help us to do this, because we're going to have practices to refer, and we're like, are we going to find some that actually want to do this right, or we're going to have to do this ourselves?
No, honestly, we don't need everybody to understand this, but you were just referring to some stuff that we've got kind of queuing up behind the scenes. I'm really excited about it. I actually have a call with a web developer tomorrow who has like 25 people that work for him designing websites. I'm so excited because on the back end, when we find the right marketers, the right website developers, the right people that actually see the opportunity in front of them, whether they believe in this Hipaa crap or not, right? But they can see the opportunity in front of them. The minute they get a taste of that, the minute they get a sniff of that, they're going to realize they actually could be on our referral database. If they're willing to play this game with us and go down this road and learn how to do this stuff and implement it, and not just pretend, like you have to actually do it, okay? When we unleash this stuff, I mean, that could turn into an awful lot of referrals. And I'm really excited about that because, frankly, I can identify with these marketers and these website designers. I know a lot of people in this industry, and I want to help them. And I think this is like the perfect opportunity for us to go out and do the right thing and help the practice owners and help the patients in turn and help the marketers. And, I mean, this is just, I'm excited. I don't know if you can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, we're with Paulson in something called Tier 5, and there is a little opportunity to doing some software, some tools that eventually may be HIPAA compliant, because there is like and we just had this discussion with somebody in your group about what HIPAA compliance means, and there is and we're veering totally off topic here, but there's always this feeling that, okay, I have this tool, there is this magic tool, and just tell me what it is, and I'm going to be compliant. What is this? Why does everybody think they need to have a magic tool?
Well, I think that first of all, nobody in marketing was taught HIPAA. And so the little bits that they hear, the little pieces that they read, the little research that they might have done, they're kind of gleaning what they can from it. And it makes perfect sense that they're going to think, oh, if I'm going to do this, then all my tools have to be compliant. And I keep telling people, and so do you, it's not a tool thing. It's a behavior thing. There's a whole bunch of stuff that kind of is a package deal that has to be in place for this to be right. And it is possible, and you've had these discussions with me, and we still have some things to work out on it, but it is possible to use non-compliant tools and still be compliant. And it is possible.
You're the expert there, but I still say that if there's legal aspects to it, and the lawyers always win.
It's not a tool issue. It's a behavior issue. Yeah. Now, in some cases, do the tools you use have to be compliant? Absolutely. There are some cases where that just is the case, okay? But there's some other cases where a non-compliant tool doesn't mean you're non-compliant. Yeah. It's a behavior issue.
Yeah. Now, Kimberly Shutters here says, "Don't take away my Hipaa soapbox." I mean, she's probably afraid that we're going to make the whole market compliant. Is that going to happen? Kim, I doubt it.
Kim, you and I have both been in this long enough to know that there's a whole bunch of people out there who just either don't think it's important, who don't think that their clients think it's important, who really do think it's important, but they don't have the time, the energy, the money, the inclination to actually go down that road because they're too busy doing other. There's a ton of people out there that aren't going to do this, and that's fine. That's fine, because for the ones that actually do it, and we're already starting to see that with the people that we've worked with, they're going to get the results.
Yeah, and that's the misconception that marketers have. It's not the magic tool. It's how you behave. The story with me is that I started the plastic surgery marketing in my local market. And I remember at our first baby shower, we were sitting in this room, and I was working for the plastic surgeon, and we had all these women in there, and I knew exactly who was interested in plastic surgery, and that felt so bad. I knew that there had some privacy issues, and then, my assistant exposed somebody and it really felt bad. If you're not working in the local market, you don't get that feel. But if all your friends are on the plastic surgeon's list and they don't want it exposed, you start realizing that as a marketer, you do have that responsibility.
Yeah, the lady down the street who's getting a divorce or headed that direction and, now interested in a breast augmentation, and about that stuff, and it's just, the local market is really, really challenging. Yeah. But privacy is privacy. It doesn't matter whether you know these people personally or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So far, you and I, we've been looking at doctors. Have we found one yet that does it correctly?
I'm thinking of one in particular that comes pretty close, but we've looked at hundreds and hundreds of practice owners and their online presence, and it's pretty appalling.
Well, some we just say, okay, let's forget about it because they're just doing little things, right?
Yeah.
But perfect.
And they have a lot at stake. They have big Facebook advertising campaigns going on and large followings, and they're making all kinds of money, and there's a lot at stake there, and that's concerning.
Yeah.
What's even more concerning? And I'm smiling because I actually kind of get a kick out of it. In October, late October, OCR came out with a public declaration that they were going to be coming out with future guidance on social media. What do you think they're looking at right now in order to come up with that future guidance?
Yeah, and I've been saying this. They're looking for a marketer that they can crucify. And I've said this several times. I would rather not it be somebody that I know.
Yeah. And right now is absolutely being shined on social media and how it's being used. And that includes websites, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they're going to come out with future guidance. So now is the time to get your ducks in a row and not have your butt hanging out in the wind when that future guidance comes out. You really need to be getting yourself in check. And that's what we're trying to do.
Now, there is something exciting coming on, right? You're really excited about your course. Am I going to learn something there? Am I going to learn more? Am I going to learn more than you already taught me?
Well, I hope the heck so. Yeah. You have to pay to play, though, Joe. You're going to have to buy that course.
Really?
And everything.
I thought I'd get it for free.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. No, I did post in the groups and on my page that I have a course called Hipaa Compliance Secrets that's coming out. I'm launching it on January 16th, actually. Oh my gosh, I have so much to do to be ready for that date. I'm actually, while we're talking, I'm getting notifications from somebody who's helping me put all this stuff together and basically lining me out on some things that he needs done this week. So it's getting pretty crazy, but I'm getting really excited about it. I can't wait. I
Now,
can't wait actually, to get a bunch of people in there.
Paulson asks us, is a practice owner or a marketer too small? Or what he says here, is a practice owner or a marketer too small for anyone not to worry about this? I assume he's probably asking if size does matter.
Well, let's keep this focused to HIPAA. Stop. So, size.
I did not mention that. In case my wife listens to this, I did not start that discussion.
You better stop. To answer Paulson's question, which is actually a really common misbelief out there, is that I'm too small and the government doesn't come after the little guy. I hear that all the time. But here's the thing. There's an assumption in that by somebody who doesn't understand that the government doesn't just throw darts at the wall and go, I'm going to go after this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. Okay, the majority of who the government actually comes after is not their choice. It's based on breaches and complaints. It's mostly a complaint-driven process. Or if there's a breach that gets reported or noted in the media or noted in some other way and found out, right, which is like the worst case scenario. So breaches and complaints, you're only one breach away. You're only one complaint away. This has nothing to do with who the government wants to come after. They're required to look into each and every one of those things. Mm-hmm. And so, it could be a disgruntled employee. It could be a patient.
See, that's one thing that I've just realized too, is this marketing is public. A lot of doctors probably feel confident that their patients know that they just want to do good things, but you have a disgruntled patient, and everybody has these. You go and look at the reviews, and as soon as somebody realizes they can actually cause some real damage by doing this, they probably going to take that route because they can do this anonymously too, right?
And well, absolutely. They can do it anonymously. They can do it online. It's a very simple process. I've gone through the process myself all the way to the point of not actually signing and submitting it because I just wanted to see what, how difficult it was for the average Joe. The average Joe. That was funny. Don't forget, I can be funny. But here's the bitter end of it is that more and more you'll see doctors actually reporting doctors. Right? And in this competitive marketing world, and with everything being online, it's not a localized issue. This can happen to anyone at any time from anywhere in the United States. Like it could be somebody on the Eastern Coast who's reporting somebody on the West Coast. It doesn't have to be just somebody from your town or your own patient. It's really kind of interesting. And, people are getting retargeted. They know that like somebody knows they're interested in some particular procedure and they see, ads pop up about something that they were just looking at. They were Google searching it maybe, right?
Let me tell you a little bit out of my toolbox as a marketer. There is something called negative SEO. I always say SEO is the last thing a doctor should do. As a practice owner, what you need to do first is do some type of direct response marketing, meaning Facebook ads, Google AdWords, something down that road, because that is what gets you patients and phone calls. Search engine optimization is important, but it comes after that. But there is something that's called negative SEO. There is actually a company out there that lets you do negative SEO by clicking on your client's thing, staying on that page, then clicking the back button, going to the competitor, and immediately bouncing back. And that bounce rate, Google takes that as a indicator of what's important. And when you do this consistently, you can actually, through this negative SEO, hurt your competitor.
Holy moly, Joe.
Now, that's a marketing tactic. Now, I'm telling you this. I have done this. I'm not a nice person when it comes to growing my client. Now,
German.
No, I'm just I'm business minded. Business people do this. They try to get an advantage, and it's called an unfair advantage. And when you do something like that, now I don't know if I would go out and report a client of mine or a competitor of a client of mine, but you bet you if I was aware of something really fishy going on, somehow that would go into my marketing. There is no doubt about it.
Mhm.
There's no doubt about it. And so you really, if this is a doctor listening, you need to be concerned about this just because if your competitor is aware of it, they may use it against you. So
Yeah. See, Joe, this is why you and I partner together so well, because you're always thinking about the marketing aspect of it, and I'm more on the side of what's the right thing to do, right? What doing the right thing for the right reason is really important to me. So I think that works well.
now Paulson just said something about negative SEO is a real thing. I think he thought he was the only one knowing it, Paulson, huh?
Apparently it is a real thing.
Of course I know that. It's like I've been doing this for 15 years. Um, you always, and that's one thing you got to realize. If you are a good marketer, you take your client's business serious. And when you take your client's business serious, you do what you can. And part of that is also keeping your client out of trouble. And that's once I started realizing that Hipaa was an issue here, I tried to keep my clients out of trouble. There was a post that I did on this demand force thing. Oh, did I say demand force? I probably shouldn't say demand force. But anyhow, they're a large company. They do marketing, and they have this provision in their business associate agreement that places the cost for a breach on their client. Now, from a legal perspective, any lawyer would say, well, that's good lawyering, right? But the situation really is that it can be very costly. And I have clients who have 20,000 patients in demand force. Now, if demand force had a breach on this, can you imagine what the cost would be to fix that? And the client has to pay it. And so one of the things that I have always done is I try to negotiate and read the business associate agreement. And that's how you do good stuff for your client. But you need to be aware of it as a marketer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's what
And
you're going to learn in Kristen's class. You're actually going to know what you're going to have to look for to help your client. You're also going to know what you can't do, and you're going to know what you can do. And if somebody like me comes and says you can't do that, then you're going to have a counter argument, just like Kristen has. Whenever I say you can't do that, she says, well, we could do it this way or that way.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, but we've been on for 33 minutes. We only wanted to do 10 minutes. Paulson asked, when is the mastermind? What?
Hey, I posted. I put it a feeler alert. I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, around this whole concept of getting a handful, maybe 10 marketers together who are going to Funnel Hacking Live.
Yeah, the house we're looking at, we can't do 10 though. I think it's only 8 that would fit in there,
Well,
unless there are some guys that are willing to share a bedroom.
Oh, that's weird. But the idea here is
8, okay? Don't
really
say 10. There's maximum of 8.
a few marketers who are wanting to take this seriously and would be interested in getting together and not just learning it, but actually figuring out what it's going to take to implement it. So when you walk out of that time with us, you have your ducks in a row for the most part.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things you wouldn't be able to do in that event, but we could definitely make sure that we support you in getting it done. And then they would be basically the first marketers on that referral database. So,
Well,
I think,
and they can actually keep their clients out of trouble.
yeah.
Yeah.
And themselves. Hello.
Yeah. There's actually, I haven't researched that. You send me a link. There was just another settlement done. I haven't gone and actually researched it, what it is about, but it was business associate. again.
Yeah,
And
well, the hospital, the healthcare organization, whatever it was, it was a little hospital. Um, they didn't have a process in place consistently, apparently, that would terminate someone's access rights when they left as an employee, so they're no longer an employee. And that person maintained access and to a scheduler of some sort, and basically breached over 500 patients worth of data during the time that they still had that access when they weren't actually an employee. So technically, the only way they could have had access to that legally would be if they had a business associate agreement in place. So the hospital got dinged for not having termination policies in place, or at least effective ones, and also not having a business associate agreement in place. And this is just one tiny little example in a sea of tens of thousands of examples, hundreds of thousands of examples. So yeah, I try to share those kinds of things with people because I don't think they understand how one tiny little thing like not having a BAA or not terminating access or not having a risk assessment documented or updated in the last year, all of these are little things, but that one little thing can turn into a pretty large number if you're ever in that situation. So.
Yeah, and it's, often, I say, okay, there is fines, but the fines aren't really the thing that concerns me as somebody that needs to run a business. Let's say I have $1 million a year or $2 million or $3 million. My clients are somewhere in between $1.5 to $3 million in annual income. Let's say I get $1 million fine. I may be able to pay that fine. But the problem is now the government comes and puts a corrective action plan on me.
Yeah, they're all in your now.
Yeah, and then now they're looking at everything that I do. So I may be able to pay that fine, but then I have to stop my business or come up with the correct way of doing it.
From a marketing perspective, that's not great publicity for you either,
Yeah.
And not only that, but if it's your client, if it's the healthcare provider that gets dinged, one of the first things they have to do in their desk audit is to actually provide a list of all their business associates. So don't think that you're going to somehow be excluded from this whole fun if it's the provider that's the one that gets dinged on something. No, you're part of it. Lucky you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good thing nobody knows my clients. But good thing also, my clients are largely HIPAA compliant. Of course, there is one aspect of this that you also need to talk about it. Let's say I'm, as a marketing company, are HIPAA compliant. I can't say if I'm compliant, but I'm concerned about all these things. I try to do my best. And I have a client who doesn't give a rat's behind about it. And now that client gets in trouble. They are all of a sudden are going to come and look at me too. Now, so you got to realize as a marketer, if you take on a client who is not concerned with this, you may get in trouble, right?
Well, see, here's the thing that a lot of marketers and practice owners, frankly, don't really understand yet, because it's fairly new. So about 5 years ago, in September of 2013, business associates, as a part of the High-Tech Act of 2009, became equally liable, okay? Big newsflash. You're liable whether your covered entity gives a rat's behind or not. You are a business associate doing lead generation anyway for medical practice clients. You are a business associate whether you know it, whether you acknowledge it, whether you comply with it or not. The government doesn't give a rat's behind about whether you think it's something that you need to worry about or not.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think this is the reality check that we as marketers have to really have, is that we're business associates, period. Yeah. And there's going to be a lot of people out there, other marketers, even lawyers, who don't fully understand that lead generation constitutes being a business associate. Yeah. So, there's going to be people who disagree with it, but technically that is the case.
Well, what I tell marketers, and I have told several marketers this, if this is your opinion, go get that in writing from a lawyer. If you have a HIPAA lawyer that gives you that in writing, you probably are covered, because if the government then says you relied on the lawyer's advice, their insurance is going to pay for it. But I can tell you from my own experience, once you get there, and you ask the lawyer, give this to me in writing, you're not going to get the answer that you want to hear. You're
Yeah.
going to get the answer that leads our protected health information, and you need to be compliant. Now, the moment you have that answer and you don't follow it, you fall in a totally different category of fines, right?
Yep.
You know that.
Willful neglect.
Yeah. And see, and that's one thing when I hear this, and we originally went and asked some fairly good marketers. They're excellent marketers. And I have this, and like Paulson said, you said it, I have this approach where I'm just straightforward. I'm just German. I'm just saying what I think. And I got some pretty bad feedback on it. But
yeah. Don't
I
name
also,
anybody we talk to.
yeah,
Don't name.
yeah, I won't. But the situation is really that I got some answers that were really hair-raising. My lawyer told me that as long as we say that the doctor has to follow the rules, we're fine.
Right. They think they can weigh accountability.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's not a lot of lawyers out there that are true HIPAA experts. There might be some healthcare law experts, but they're not HIPAA experts, and they sure as heck don't have an understanding of marketing workflows. And so you have to find the right lawyer. You said a couple of things, Joe. You said find a HIPAA lawyer. Here's where a lot of people go wrong. They find a business lawyer. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go to a neurologist for something that requires somebody, who specializes in endocrinology. That's just not going to happen. Number two, you said you're probably okay if you get it in writing. There's no guarantee on that. The government requires you to do something called due diligence, and talking to one lawyer who may or may not be a HIPAA expert and getting something in writing depends on the investigator. That may or may not constitute due diligence.
Yeah.
So you have to think about protecting your own assets. And this is where people get confused. They think that they can just waiver away their accountability to the covered entity as a part of their service agreement. Well, unfortunately, as of September of 2013, that is not an option because you're a business associate in the eyes of the rule, again, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, or, and that comes back to how we started, and maybe even though we have a good talk, we don't want to bore people for too long. If the doctor says, let me just put this thing on the screen again, here. If he says, I don't have to be compliant, is he the one that determines that? Or who determines that?
Okay, so when crap hits the fan, who's determining that is the investigator.
Yeah, and that's
how that's going to come down.
And so if somebody thinks he has to be compliant, they can still turn him in. And if the government determines he had to be compliant and he goes out there and even has a message like that out there, forget about it. You're going to HIPAA jail. That's actually, there is not many jail sentences that have anything to do with HIPAA, but there were a couple of doctors that went to jail because they tried to hide the fact that, and so there's,
they as far as to tell their employees what to say to the investigator.
Yeah.
That was nuts.
Yeah, I talked to a lawyer the other day, and he gave me an example. And he said, well, I've been through an audit, and my client was audited, and they didn't get a fine. They got a corrective action plan. And part of that corrective action plan was employee policies and training that had to be conducted. And so, like, about a year later, there was just some people showing up on the door, and they just started asking questions to employees. Where is your privacy policy? What do you do when this happens? What do you do when that happens? Without a warning. They just showed up.
That's how the government operates when it comes to regulations, not just under HIPAA.
So they just didn't take the word. They just went and checked it.
Yeah.
And so that's actually, I think that should be it for today. We're 44 minutes. I want it to be 7 minutes.
Always happens to me. You say, let's do a Facebook Live. It's only going to be 5 or 10 minutes. Next thing you know, it's tomorrow. We're
Well,
still talking. I hope people
to,
are getting good stuff from it, though.
yeah, to you and me, this is interesting. It's also our business, and
Yeah.
we are trying to create awareness. The problem with the length of this is, though, that you're going to lose people eventually because, but on the other hand, we're not at the point yet where it is repetitive. I think we had a pretty good discussion today. And I really hope that everybody is getting something out of it. And I also hope that if you are interested, I'm going to put the links below. Kristen's going to put the links there. We have groups where we do this on a regular basis, where we answer questions. They're not public, they're closed groups. And so maybe we can be a little bit more open. One thing that we are worried about is, and you've heard this, we don't want to expose somebody. We don't want to go out and call somebody out. Even though if there were bad actors, then we would probably do that. But the problem is that there's not really bad actors in the market, because when you're not aware of it, you're not a bad actor. We just need to shake you a little bit and make you aware of it. And there's great marketers out there. To the doctors, if you look at the marketers that are out there that are really doing it, they're good marketers. But
Yeah.
they have to be compliant. There's no two ways about it. They have to be compliant. You cannot work with a marketer that is non-compliant, and you've got to ask the right questions. And again, if you want to get into our group, we have a document. We have actually due diligence checklist that we work on, correct? That,
Yeah.
you can do. You can take that list. You can go out to your marketing company and ask. And so you can make sure that they won't let you stand in the rain when it starts pouring.
And even before that, we are putting something together so that the docs know what questions to ask when they're trying to decide who should do their marketing. What are the questions they should ask when they're contemplating who they're going to hire for that service? What are the questions they should ask when they're talking with somebody about designing their website or hosting their website? And these are important things to know. We just are trying to educate people. The goal of the group is to provide a ton of value. So if you're getting value out of these Facebook Lives, you're getting value out of the posts, you're getting value out of the group discussions, things like that, we need to know. And if there's some things we want to make sure that we're covering, we need to know that too. That would really help a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so let's end this for today. And we're going to do this more regular now because, as you can see, there's a Christmas tree behind Kristen, and Kristen is focusing on this with me now permanently, right?
That is right. I'm a consultant, and my last contract, I'm not planning to take any more, is ending the end of next week. And then I get to enjoy the holidays. And then this whole thing is going to be full time. So I'm really excited about it.
Yep. And I'm a German slave driver. I'm going to make you go on 3 lives a week.
That's it?
Well, we can do daily, but I'm actually in Eastern time zone. You're in Pacific time zone, so I would like to go live at 9:00 in the morning.
And I'm one-eyed at that moment. So.
Okay. Well,
not fit for public viewing.
So thanks for listening, guys. Anybody that made it to the end here, we really appreciate that you spend 48 minutes with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you next time.